Happy October, everyone. Once again, would you accept wine from from Pennywise in the middle of the night? That's the question.
Pennywise.
But yeah, Bill Skarsgård. It's the Pennywise from the recent hit movie.
I didn't realize.
Yeah, him without makeup. I think it's the only time I've seen him without makeup.
That's quite interesting, then.
So I did clock that his name was Keith as well. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I think about that movie. I'm not sure what you're saying about people called Keith, but we'll get there. We are here to talk about Barbarian from 2022. So this was the debut film from Zach Cregger, who recently did Weapons, much talked about recent movie. Which
is that any good? Have you seen that?
I was mixed on it. I was about to say, me and Madison, who pops up on this channel quite a lot, we did some non-spoiler thoughts on that one. So I'll link that video into the description of this one, so you can listen to our non-spoiler thoughts and we sum up what we think. But I was definitely mixed first time around. I think it's the sort of movie, if you watch it a second time knowing where it's going, you might get into it more. It was his debut film, Barbarian. Previously, he'd done comedy stuff. He'd also done commercials, apparently, for like quite a big brand in the US.
I'm really surprised that he's done comedy.
Well, so am I. Like, we can get into that.
I mean, bearing in mind, this is the only thing I know about him is Barbarian. I've not seen...
because it's definitely moving away from that. And when I was watching this the other night, someone was saying actually then in some ways he's gone the Jordan Peele route, because Jordan Peele started out in comedy, and there's definitely comedic moments.
There's a marked difference. And in fact, it's interesting you mentioned Jordan Peele, because I thought there was a little reference to Jordan Peele in the middle of this film.
Is the reference a massive spoiler? If it's not, you can just say. But it's
interesting because, as you said at the beginning, would you accept a bottle of wine from Pennywise? And almost, it's like the thing I was thinking about this is it's really, really hard to talk about this film without spoiling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without spoiling the opening bit, which I think was the only part of the film I thought was any good at all. I didn't think it was that good. You spoiler across the thing.
No, it's non-spoiler because we're doing the intro to the movie. Like, this is literally the premise. Okay, mild spoilers because it's a hard premise to describe without.
Before you do this, can I just say that for me, the woman turns up at a house and there's, it's meant to be empty. It's an Airbnb, and then there's a man there.
Right. That's the premise, which I'm trying to describe. If you
right, okay, you were going to go beyond that, really.
Well, okay. This is the way I was going to sum up the premise. I was going to sum it up as there's two separate plots which then intersect. So we start off with the one side of the plot, which is the woman Tess, played by Georgia Campbell. She arrives on a dark and stormy night at her Airbnb, so very modern. And it turns out she's been double booked with a strange man who is Keith, Pennywise himself, Bill Skarsgård. So there's that whole typical horror tension of, can I trust this guy? Is he a bit weird? Yeah. Already been cast and was known as Pennywise. So it is possible the film was playing on that. Yeah. So you get the a horror type setup with those two at the Airbnb. Can she trust him? Should she be accepting wine from him? Later on, she discovers a mystery room in the basement. So we'll get to that. And then about halfway through, we cut to this other character, AJ, played by Justin Long, who's an obnoxious actor, and he's just been fired from a potential TV pilot, because of sexual harassment claims. And it turns out that he owns
claims, actually, not sexual harassment.
Just trigger warning for certain things in this movie, because I know some of the themes aren't going to be for everyone, and some of the things it goes into later on. So he owns the property, and because he's lost this job, he's suddenly scrambling around for money. So he returns to the property to try and see if he can sell it off. And that's when his side of the plot connects with the other side of the plot, and Tess's side of the plot. And that's pretty much all we can say spoiler free. So
yeah, I think, yeah.
It's a tough one to talk about much without going into spoilers. So you've had your pre-spoiler warnings.
So we're allowed to use spoilers now.
We can. So,
well, actually, just very quickly,
so
I will. We should go into the. Did you like it?
Like, again, amongst horror fans, it was quite talked about, and it was seen as like one of the big kind of indie breakout horror movies.
Well, yeah, I wondered about that because
few years, and
because I thought it'd be quite interesting, because I think I've already said I didn't like it. I thought you might, and I thought it might be interesting, the two of us having a difference of opinion. I thought you might like it because you're a horror fan, whereas, because I'm not so much of a horror fan.
Yeah.
But it sort of struck me as a sort of film that didn't need a director, really. It was like all the work was being done. I suppose this is a little bit of a spoiler, actually. So
okay.
But all the work was being done by the production designer and the makeup artist and the camera lighting person.
Right.
I can't remember who that was.
Okay. Well,
it was like everything about it was just kind of like, it was just very obvious. It was, there was nothing. I mean, I don't mean obvious in the sense of, like I say. So this is definitely, we're getting into spoilers, definitely. So this Keith character, you are kind of going, oh, is he a psycho? Is he not a psycho? That's very obviously what that whole beginning bit is about. And he's a bit too good to be true. And then you see her being chased by a guy, and you think, Keith, is that on the doorstep?
Well, the Skarsgård guy is called Keith.
Yes. But then you see her, she's going back to the house, and somebody's like, you shouldn't be in there, and she's rushing with the key.
Oh, you mean the homeless?
Yeah, I mean, but you don't know who he is.
That's a big theme in the movie. Stuff you're talking about, is that down to the directing? Because another thing is, bearing in mind this was a debut film, like, would you say the directing is, from that point of view, the directing is sort of at least solid? Like, it's because some of the stuff you were talking about, I'm not sure comes under direction. Like, if you're saying you thought it was predictable, that kind of thing. Well, I mean that feels more like story to me. And you were
I think he wrote it as well, didn't he? I think he wrote and directed it.
He might have done. I didn't really catch that. But...
Well, no, what I mean is, it's like, what was good about the film was very little, but the build up, the bit with Keith was good. I quite like that. And then she goes down into the cellar and she finds this room, and this is the Jordan Peele. It's a very small thing, but she puts the mirror. No, in fact, before she puts the mirror there to get the light down the tunnel. Yeah. She looks at the door and she opens the door. There's that rope, and she opens the door, and it's just a black thing. And you think, oh, she's going to walk in there and get hacked to death or something. And she just goes, nope. And I just thought that was like
of course, because of
that bit where he's investigating the alien, isn't he?
I thought of that.
Is it, what's his name? Daniel Kaluuya, is it?
Yeah, Daniel Kaluuya.
He's investigating, and he sees something, and he's about to investigate, and he goes, nope. And I just thought that seems like a reference. Not exactly a reference.
Well, I think, it's not a reference, because I think the films were probably being made around about the same time.
Right. Well,
because they came out similar times, but
Well, maybe.
I know what you mean, and It was quite a funny moment, wasn't it? And
it was what the film needed so much more of. I mean, it needed more fun. I mean, that was the other thing about it. That was why I said I was surprised he was a comedian, because this film had no fun about it whatsoever. That, you know, compared to, say, like Evil Dead, which we watched, you know, there was just a lot of silly fun to be had. And this film, I thought, was taking itself so seriously, and it was so tired.
A horror fan, and you know, if you just want to get into like a suspenseful movie, and there's certain things that it's having fun with, like there's certain payoffs and there's certain satisfying like horror type payoffs. So it depends what you mean by fun.
I mean, that's interesting.
One thing I was going to say, and this is, I'm not going to talk about weapons, but like just in that movie, I think you see a bit more humor, or him attempting a bit more humor, and it's actually one of my complaints with that movie, because it does, those moments feel a little bit out of place, like then they don't quite work with that movie. But
I mean, you've got to, you know, in order to have humor, it's got to be the right kind of humor. I mean, it's I think, I mean, it's like, you know, when you have bad comic relief, they ruin movies. I mean, that ruins good movies a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But I think that having appropriate comic relief is kind of, and it's tricky, I imagine. But this had no comic relief at all. It was, I mean, maybe if anything, Keith was the comic relief just by being such a nice guy. You thought he's got to be a, you know, he's got to turn out to be a psycho killer.
Yeah,
he's so nice, you know, and he's so accommodating, and he won't even open the bottle of wine until she's in the room to make sure he doesn't put poison in it and things like that. Things that, you know, I don't think most of us would think about really.
No, they're just playing on that, like,
yeah, and absolutely, and that was, if anything, that was the only bit that was kind of pleasing about it.
Okay.
Because the other thing I felt was that, you know, so we are going to, this is total spoiler now, she goes down into the kind of, you know, the basement of the house, and then discovers there's a second basement which has apparently a kind of torture room. It's got a bed covered in blood and a video camera, and, you know, and then she discovers there's a third basement, and this is the kind of creepy little corridor and everything. But it was just like, it seemed like, well, this isn't really pushing yourself as a director, is it? This isn't going to new places. And then you've got this kind of, I think, genuinely creepy image of this weird woman that appears and kind of
out of nowhere.
But again, you know, it's she's moodily, she's half lit, and she's very sort of, you know, she's a naked old woman with all her skin hanging off her, and it's genuinely quite a disturbing image. And then inexplicably, for no good reason, she kills Keith and doesn't kill Tess. And then after that, the film was just shit, I thought.
I mean, I didn't.
It wasn't even scary after that.
Well, all right, whatever.
That was my opinion.
It's not shit. I've seen a lot of terrible movies. But this is the thing on this channel. Like, me and Rachel, we always go back to, we watched all, I think it's 7 of the Wrong Turn franchise. And if you want to see some shit movies, watch
which franchise?
Wrong Turn. It's
okay.
And it's one of those weird franchises where it has a decent first movie, and then it has a decent, because they brought it back a few years ago for like a soft kind of reboot type thing, and that movie wasn't bad. And then pretty much in the middle, it's all kind of shit.
That was why I thought you might like it, because it's very, very generic, I think, this film, The Barbarian. And the title makes no sense also.
Yeah, I don't know why it's called Barbarian. No.
Yeah.
I mean, I just get reminded of the 1980s, early 90s wrestler. So that's my particular nerd thing. But yeah. So I don't know what the title means, no.
Yeah, I mean, she's not a barbarian.
I don't know.
And nobody in it is.
I mean, I think he is quite. Maybe that is him trying to be a bit too clever with the title. Like, there's probably like this fancy sort of reason.
I just thought I could have seen a million other horror movies, second-rate horror movies, and they would have all been just as effective as this one. And this was no better. It didn't do anything interesting or original, in my opinion.
Okay.
It had loads of things that didn't. It's interesting you say that there were payoffs, because there was constant lacks of payoffs. Actually.
Okay. Well, yeah.
The biggest one for me was when the tramp says she's not the worst thing in there, and it's like, oh my god, there's going to be no. And then how many times can you knock somebody off a 500-foot building and then not die? And yeah.
Well, no, it was only once.
Well, I know, but they knocked two people off. Neither of them died, and despite the fact that one of them hit the ground first, when you cut to the shot the other way around,
well, I don't know. That's a major nitpick. Like, I mean, you hear. I mean, it doesn't matter if the film's working.
You know, if you want to scare the shit out of people, dimly lit tunnels under strange houses, especially when you have cages with dog food, you know, and what seems to be a torture room. It's not hard. It's not pushing yourself as a director to do
that. But that's fine. Not everything has to be rocket science or like reinventing the real.
Not just like, that you know, it's like why pick this film? Why not just randomly talk into your Alexa and just finding a generic horror movie? And
that's not fair. Like, this movie is sort of playing with things. It's the fact that it's like an Airbnb. I think that because now there are more horror movies that are doing that. Like, the setup is that couples or whatever are getting mixed up at Airbnbs, and that's kind of the premise. But like, this is the first movie I can think of to do that. So the fact that it's an Airbnb and you can put it down to maybe it was just a screw up online with a double booking, like, I think that feels like
I say that bit was fine. The Airbnb and having Pennywise there in the middle of the night was quite effective. And then she meets the woman who she's gone for the job interview with, and says, "You shouldn't be in that neighborhood."
Yes.
And I think I would sort of be going, "Why not? Not, oh, okay." You know, it's like
no, but
it was like, what's wrong with the neighborhood? We never really find out, apart from there's this pristine B&B in the middle of this neighborhood that's apparently been hit by Katrina, and it's level apart from this one house.
Hang on, backtrack a minute. Hit what?
Well, she goes out.
Hang on. Where did you get it? It's been hit. Oh, is that a gag? It's been hit.
No, it looks like it's been hit by Katrina.
Okay. I was going to say it's in Detroit. I don't see
how I didn't say it had been hit by Katrina.
Okay.
It looked like it had been. You know, it was like every house in this neighborhood was flattened, and there was, you know, boats. I think there was boats, wasn't there, in people's? I mean, I don't know where Detroit is. Is it on the coast?
No, it's not on the coast. But this is whenever you see Detroit in a movie, it does look like this. It looks like really run down, a nasty place to be. Well, I mean, it's the main city in RoboCop, and that's a big part of that movie. That it's very sort of grimy and industrial.
Okay. She came out of her house. She'd had this night with this guy who, at some point, somebody had tried to get into her room. Maybe.
Yeah, and she's paranoid. She thinks it might
so she's paranoid. She comes out and it's like, oh, this is the only, you know, it's suddenly daylight. You see that looks like a tree that's been in overnight, and then she goes to this job, and the woman says, you shouldn't be there, and she doesn't in any way go, why not?
But actually, see that right there, that scene with the meeting is one of the things I like, just because it is played a little bit more straight. Because I think what I quite like about this movie, and I'm not saying it's a perfect movie or anything, but what I quite like about it is then I think it works as its own thing, but it also follows certain horror conventions. But because it's a more modern horror movie. And this sometimes can be a bad thing. Like, I'm definitely on your side with a lot of modern horror, where I think, okay, you are taking yourself a bit too seriously, like, have a bit more fun, that kind of thing. But I think in this, I quite like that scene because it's like a version of the scene where the crazy old guy warns, you kids shouldn't be going into that. But I quite like that it's not over the top. I quite like that it's a casual warning, be careful, and she does, like you said, she sort of does research the guy on the internet when she's waiting for the job interview. And I quite like, she researches him.
But there's a hint, isn't there, that she's kind of slightly fancies him because.
Yeah, and that's why I think that's what I quite like about that moment. It's like she's curious, and I think the film is playing with, is she interested because she fancies him, or is she worried that I want to look into this guy in case I find something dodgy? So I think that's what makes her, because I think nowadays, and again, that's what makes it quite a modern movie, is that I think you would instantly go to the internet now. Like, if you had any doubts over someone, you would instantly look up their history, and it's a way to double check that they're not creepy. Did you think about Tess, the final girl, in a way, the final girl of the movie, as a character?
I think it would have been more interesting if she turned out to be the psycho murderer.
Okay.
That was when she turns up, and Keith's there, and you're worrying about her. It might have been interesting if she turned around and killed him.
Okay. I liked her because, again, going in a little bit of, if you strip away some of the other stuff and just treat this as well as you're doing, in a way, as like a pretty. And it is a very straightforward horror movie. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying I think there are little modern twists in there, and I think it is playing with you. And I do like a horror movie that plays with you and plays with, okay, is this guy on the level, and has quite a bit of fun with that. She looks into his internet history, and it's a little bit of, I think, social. I don't know what the phrase is, but social awkwardness, in a way, like awareness, when they're first meeting, and it's almost this idea of, is it too much? Like, is Keith being too much?
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely what Keith, I think, is. That's the point, isn't it? He's so considerate. He's so beyond sort of.
Yeah, and he does.
It's like he's almost like he's acting out how considerate man is.
Yeah, and he does certain things to make her feel at ease, sort of thing, which are a little beyond what you would necessarily always do.
Yeah, I mean, I think
he could just be an old-fashioned kind of guy. He has certain.
But the old-fashioned kind of guy would have opened the wine.
Yeah.
Would have, he would have said, "I poured you wine," and whereas he said, "I'm waiting for you. I didn't want to open it." And of course, when he says, "I haven't opened the wine," I thought, well, he's put a syringe in there, or he's put cyanide around the inside of the glass or something like that.
Like, it definitely doesn't play out exactly what you would think, because, like, probably when you're watching it for the first time, as you was, that, like, you probably didn't expect it to cut to a whole new character
I didn't.
In the middle of the movie,
but I didn't, because I expected one story, I suppose.
And Tess, I did like as a if you just want to treat her as like a final girl in a horror sense.
Yeah,
I liked her because she was proactive, especially by the end of the movie. I think she grew into the movie where she felt quite natural and you cared about her. And
I mean, you might be right. I haven't really given her as a character much thought, really.
Yeah, I did like her because, like late on in the movie, she's constantly trying to do things to, like, when she's trying to make the cops aware of it, and they're not taking
police. I mean, how little curiosity do you have to join that police force? It's like there's a woman turns up who's obviously been brutalized. She's cut and bleeding, saying, "I've been kept prisoner." Oh, I'm sorry, we're not that interested.
But I think
we just don't believe you. It's
yeah.
like, this house. This is the house. Look, there's the window I broke. You broke a window. We're going to charge you with that. And it's like, oh, good God.
I know. Yeah, you are right. But like, I think there's two things to that. One is, and again, I agree with you. There's not much comedy, but I think there is sort of a farcical, darker humor about, and I think that sort of scene is just commenting on the policing situations sometimes in the US, especially in these like run-down kind of urban neighborhoods. Because I mean, the themes of the movie, in a way, I like to do with urban decay, and I think that's why that side of it works quite well for me in a horror sense, because it's like literally you're taking something which is quite real, like from the real world, and you're turning it into a little bit of a horror movie. So it's like literally an urban decay, if you want to put it that way. I prefer this to Weapons as well, because I think this you can just get into the horror plot, and he's then making little social commentaries alongside that. Whereas Weapons, I just thought was too on the nose with the social commentary. And
right, because that was the thing. That was another thing.
This had a bit more balance, and I think
AJ's rape thing is, you know, I suppose social commentary. I guess this was in the middle of the Me Too thing, wasn't it? When 22, when was Me Too? Was it a bit before then?
Yeah, but it's obviously very fresh.
But it was so bloody virtue signally, wasn't it? It was. That's why it was one of the reasons I thought this is directed by a man, because it was so. Yeah,
but you're not supposed to like his character, though.
No, I know. I'm not talking about whether you like him or not. The fact that was there at all, which is, was just a bit like, oh, you know, we're concerned about social issues. It was like, no, you're not. It's like, you don't give a fuck. You're just. But I'm sorry.
No, yeah, but this argument really gets on my nerves, because horror movies have always had political themes, and that goes back a very long time. And obviously, you don't need to have a theme. You don't you can literally, like you've been saying, just treat it as a horror movie, and you just go for a ride. And I think this works perfectly good as a horror movie as well. Like, I think it's quite well directed. It's quite tense.
It works just as well as 1,000 other horror movies that I could have watched instead. You know, I suppose that's my.
I'll ask you about AJ then, since you reference him, because unfortunately he is a very realistic character. Like,
yeah, I mean,
totally. And they cast the right guy in Justin Long, because he's got a very irritating, whiny voice, and he just seems to play the character very convincingly.
Yeah, who is he? I mean, is he a...
Well, he's sort of known for being in horror movies, because he was in the first Jeepers Creepers film, and he's been in he was in Drag Me to Hell, Sam Raimi.
Oh, right, I haven't seen that. We talked about that, didn't we, last week?
We did, so going back to Sam Raimi.
I don't know when it was.
So he's sort of known for... And the thing is, like, in the first Jeepers Creepers, I do find his character quite annoying, even though he's meant to be, like, more sympathetic in that. But, like, so I think they definitely cast the right actor, I'll say that.
She's got other things on her mind. But when he turns up in the cell with Tess, she doesn't say, "Oh my God, you're AJ from that TV show." It starts to soften, and he starts to considering Tess, and you think, oh, you know, he's having a redemptive moment, and then he just kind of throws her to the dogs, whatever the expression is. But you sort of think, well,
yeah.
And I just sort of thought, well, it might have been more interesting if that had come out of nowhere. You know, there's no reason for him to be a rapist, other than we're supposed to dislike him at every turn, and it was like,
yeah, but that's fine. That's no,
I mean,
but again, that's what I mean by payoff, because you're waiting for the moment where he finally gets his, and I think that it's a fine line, because it's hard to just watch a character like that, because it's almost like the movie is including him, partly because of the reasons you said, because it's around the time when this stuff was quite fresh, more blunter version of an 80s horror movie character. Because one of the things I like about 80s horror movies is that they are a bit more light and a bit more campy, and you have
and that really was what was lacking.
You have characters like this, which in those movies they're kind of saying like disgusting things and they're being quite misogynistic, but you don't mind because of the tone of it, and you know there's a good chance they're going to get off in a few scenes anyway.
But it was ambiguous with him. It's like, did you want him to get killed? Because it was like the two of them were trying to get out. You know, they were trapped in this dungeon, and they were trying to get out. And where she was kind of using sort of feminine guile or whatever, whether it's feminine guile, but she was being intelligent about it, and he was like, "I'm going to shoot this woman," and
yeah.
And then there was that bloody awful scene where they find the murderer,
which is. Yeah, but what you just said is consistent with his character, because that's...
Yes, I suppose that's true.
Yeah, he's just entitled and he coasts through life. Did we need all that
in order to have a character who comes along who doesn't understand the subtleties of this woman who wants to bite your head off?
I think
it wasn't needed, and...
Well, I think what it is then it's on theme with the film. It's on theme to do with the idea that in these kinds of neighborhoods, like basically the poor are left to fend for themselves and their conditions get worse and worse. And then you get someone who's quite privileged who sets up one of these more fancy type properties, and that they just get pushed to the side even though they've grown up there and lived there for years. And so it's almost that thing of rich entitlement to do with like property. So unaware, he's so oblivious to all this, then he obviously has no idea then there's all this crazy shit going on. Again, it goes back to a little bit of an old, sort of trope, and this idea of something lurking beneath this more pretty kind of, above exterior type thing. It goes back to that a little bit, because I think that's the idea that even though it's in this kind of very rundown neighborhood, then because this rich person wants a property there and wants to make money off it, then it's kind of... And I think it's almost that idea of, okay, the neighborhood's a bit shitty, but here's a nice sort of cheaper property.
But I mean, it does also beg the question: why the hell would anybody want to rent that B&B? I mean, all right, she goes there for a job. Presumably, it's the cheapest one, and she just wanted a bed for the night.
But
you've even got the thing with the tramp. It's like there's this loony woman walking around who's killing people. Oh, I'll just choose to live in this. I'm a tramp. Go live somewhere else where there isn't a loony woman who's going to rip your arm off at the end of the movie. I mean, just, I don't know.
But I don't know. I just think as a homeless person, you don't have a lot of options. I mean,
but you do, though. You do, don't you? You just go somewhere else. You go and live. He was living in a field. I mean, there's a lot of fields over America. I mean, he might have been living.
Okay.
But actually, that was because he appeared to be in a field, and then suddenly, when you wanted a jump scare, there's a wall behind.
Okay, I mean, this all has nothing to do with the movie, so I think these are major.
That has a lot to do with the movie. The plot has quite.
Not the fact that it goes into a field. I mean, that's insignificant. I mean,
why does he choose to live there?
Well, I don't really care. It's not something you're meant to think about. It's just he's always lived there, and he's just this character who has his knowledge of the neighborhood, so then he can warn this other character about it, and that's fine. Pick you up on something you said, because you said, shouldn't she know this famous TV actor? what you're forgetting is the pilot. The series hasn't been picked up.
No,
They've only got to the pilot stage, and it's not going any further now because of the rape claims.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But the implication I got from it was that he's a relatively famous actor to start with. He's an up and coming actor at the very least. Because he says when the woman accuses him of rape, he says, "I brought her in on the project. She wouldn't have had the job if it wasn't for me." I can't remember what the woman's name was.
Yeah, which again,
he's obviously got a little bit of clout, and he's the star of a pilot, which I think you only get. You know, it's like, I don't know. If you think about Friends, they all had minor parts in other things when they first Bruce Springsteen videos and things like that.
Yeah.
And then they get Friends, and then they become famous. I got the impression he was at least he was beyond
semi-famous. Mate.
Yeah, he was beyond the kind of minor parts point. I don't know, maybe I was wrong about that. But there didn't seem to be any reason why he was an actor, other than to put in this kind of, Me Too type thing.
He was such a difficult character to put up with at times. Like, they obviously made him intentionally just a complete monster, because like his reaction to everything was so about himself, so entitled, and there was no social like awareness of anything. And just the way his general attitude towards women and like everything else was just terrible. And I think, as I said, that's what they're doing partly. They're making him like such an extreme asshole, where it's like, okay, we're going to then enjoy when he gets his a bit later on. And I can understand then maybe that, because to be honest, I wasn't quite sure about it. I was like, yeah, maybe you can tone this guy down a bit. Like, maybe it's like, I can see what you're doing, and unfortunately it's quite realistic. And I think it's just that thing of this movie's, because this is a more modern movie, I think it's this movie's version of a character you would have got in the 80s, where you just maybe laugh that character off. And as I said, he's at least quite entertaining to watch, and then he has a death probably somewhere along the line.
I mean, I'm thinking, for me, the classic one of that is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where the guy, which I think we've talked about, haven't we? And he is so annoying, and then he gets killed, and you feel like guilty because he's in a wheelchair, but actually he's so annoying. It's like kind of it's like you just want him to die, and you really enjoy the fact that he dies.
Yeah, and in the 80s, you have a lot of these fraternity type movies and like very teen sort of movies, and you tend to get really obnoxious characters in that. But it is one thing I like about 80s horror, is that they do have a goofy charm, and they at least make those characters entertaining to watch and memorable. They've got funny lines and antics, and so I think, going back to what you're saying, I think he is, as I said, almost like a modern version of that character, and they've just decided to make him more like, this is a very toxic, realistic.
You keep saying realistic, and I'm thinking, this is an actor in 2022 who meets up with his friend,
realistic,
and he says, "I've been accused of rape," and his friend says, "Did you rape her?" And he's like, "Not at first," or something. I can't remember what he says. He's like, she just took a bit of persuading or something. And it was like, this is not a realistic depiction.
I think
I'm not suggesting there aren't complete and utter assholes out there who think that sort of thing happen.
And they try and justify it, or they
kind of talk about it to their mates, and so it's like, I really did nothing wrong.
I think they do. I think they do. I think, and I'm not saying it's common, and we're definitely more self-aware, but I think it fits his character. Again, he's like, when they're in the club and there's a lot of sort of bro talk and a lot of very like masculine and trying to be cool, and
who even was his friend? I mean, what's this? The guy lives in Hollywood. He's got a mate in Detroit. What's going on?
Well, Well, no, the property's in Detroit. He's not normally based in Detroit. You know, he's a bit of a rich kid.
I know, but he's in Detroit when he meets up with his friend in the club, isn't he?
No, I think that's still Hollywood. I think.
Oh, is he still in Hollywood?
I think that's still Hollywood.
Okay, I'll give it that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, his friend, and I'm not sure because I don't know what part he plays, but Zach Cregger actually has a small cameo in this movie,
okay.
So that might have been his friend because apparently he's in the club and. It's like,
see, this is an awful thing to say because it's probably actually libelous, but I would not be surprised because there was, like I say, this virtue signaling that came out. I would not be surprised if there's an accusation made against.
Okay, well,
just because it's like, you know, it's like you're trying a bit too hard.
We'll look for that. We'll keep an eye on the headlines.
I mean, I'm saying that, you know, I don't want to get sued.
I mean, he's got a Resident Evil movie coming out, so maybe wait until he's done that.
Is this serial killer who lives in the house in the 80s? Well, it does go somewhere, but and you get this little flashback of him.
So Frank
is that his name? And he goes in. He pretends to be a bug sprayer, doesn't he?
Yeah,
which I think
to gain the confidence of this woman.
And then he breaks into this woman's. Well, he pretends to be a bug sprayer, which I think they got out of Blue Velvet. And he
could
goes
be, yeah.
Unlocks. Yeah, I mean, nothing original in this film. And unlocks.
Yeah, but that's such a small thing. You can't complain.
Well, it's a scene at the end of the movie where AJ goes into a room and Frank's there.
Yeah, really old, decrepit Frank, who's not.
Well, yeah, but this guy is, I mean, presumably being kept alive by his granddaughter / daughter.
Yeah, so we go down the whole thing. Well,
but there is an element that she won't go in the room. She seems to be too scared to go into the room.
Yeah.
Because when she's chasing AJ, he goes in the room. Although there is that bell, which you assume is how he kind of rings it and says, "Bring me food."
The flashback is it gives you a hint that this is where all this started with him because he is buying milk at the supermarket.
Well, yeah, I mean, you see that it's a nice neighborhood. It's a kind of suburban neighborhood that's gone downhill. And see, I took it a bit more like it's gone downhill because he, you know, people, oh, there's something evil in that house, you know, and I didn't take it as this rich and poor thing that you're talking about. I took it as the neighborhood went downhill because there was a serial killer. But it was quite an extreme amount of going downhill, you know. Stuff
down in the basement and all the rest of it, I think, is partly where it's a metaphor for, as I said, like this property which has been set up by a rich person all these years ago, and it's just used as a thing to, you know, regardless of the poor which is around it, it's used as a thing to draw in like tourists and things like that. And so the horror side of it is the fact that there is something beneath it, something lurking in the basement, and all these dark secrets, and I mean the torture room and all the rest of it that we see. But like,
that's not a rich person. That's Frank.
No, I'm not saying he's the rich person, but I'm just saying that's a theme in the movie. Like, it's a theme to do with, I think, rich people just treating these things as like they just move into the neighborhood or set up a property, and there's like no regard for people around there.
80s bit, isn't there? The neighbor says, "I'm moving out," and you get the idea that somebody's going to develop the area.
Yeah.
And Frank says, "I'm not moving." And then evidently at some point along the line, they didn't develop the area. They just let it go to rack and ruin. Jay bought it, but somehow Frank still managed to live in the cellar along with his, along with his mad, incest daughter.
Well, but again, I think that again goes to the movie and what it's saying, because I think what basically happened, which I can totally believe, is that AJ bought into the property, just treated it as, okay, I'm going to make it into an Airbnb, and that's it. He doesn't really have to live there most of the time. He only returns because he's in money problems, and he's thinking about selling it off. So it's that idea of he doesn't pay any attention to it, even though he owns it like all year round. He just like leases it out to people. You know, there's customers. So it's almost like it's quite realistic. He's off in Hollywood, like living the high life. So it's quite realistic. Then he would have no awareness of any dodgy thing that was going, you know, on.
No, I mean, I understand that, and I think, you know, that may have an element of realism about it, but it's an Airbnb. It's not.
But it also goes to the theme of the movie as well, which is very important. You know, you're telling us.
I mean, I don't think that was the theme. I mean, I didn't get that theme from the movie.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. That's
to me seems like you've kind of. It feels like you've kind of grafted that on to a.
Well,
you know, they just want to sort of slightly.
I think what I'm saying is that most horror movies have a theme or have like a metaphor that it's playing with. One who's quite entitled just set out this thing to make money in a neighborhood which isn't. And maybe you're right. Maybe over time there were other things, like the fact that there was a serial killer in the neighborhood. Like that definitely would have driven some people away.
Yeah, we're never told why this presumed development never happened.
No.
And it's possibly it's because, you know, people keep dying whenever they go there, wasn't it? I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's, or maybe it's just like, you know, we bought this nice neighborhood. We're gonna, and then we've changed our mind and we're gonna let it go to rack and ruin. Maybe there's that, but none of that's in the film. I mean, none of that's. To me, anyway.
No,
it's just you have to surmise this.
But that's good. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's good if a movie doesn't over-explain itself, and
but it does over-explain.
Well, clearly not, because you've got all these.
Well, I mean, no. We're talking about you've come up with a theory and said the movie doesn't explain it, but it's not. Well, it doesn't explain it. Because I'm saying it's not there. I'm saying you've dreamt it up. Personally, that's my.
No, but I think part of horror and part of storytelling, especially in a movie, because you obviously have a very limited amount of time to tell a story in a movie.
Did she find it particularly atmospheric or tense or?
Yeah, well, I think I quite like then. It's just updating tropes from other horror movies from earlier decades. I quite like them. It feels like a modern take on those tropes.
Right.
You know, I do like that because I think horror should evolve and, you know, do different things and put different twists on them. And yeah, I did think generally it was quite well directed and quite tense, and you know, it had a couple of good jump scares. Like I said, I thought she was an engaging final girl. Like she does grow into the movie a bit and has a, you know, the fact that she is at the end very proactive. And I think you like her more because she does make the choice to go back into the house and try and save who, let's face it, is a worthless piece of shit who probably
but
deserves to die. But she has that.
She doesn't know that for a start, but also
no, she doesn't know that. But obviously, in that position, you maybe could have
a little choice because the police dump her there and then drive off. We don't believe you've been attacked, Miss Bruised and Cut Woman.
And I think that is where part of the comedy is coming in. Like, I think it is like a farcical type comedy. It's like so ridiculous that they wouldn't believe her, but it's like also they're sort of commenting on, as I said, modern policing a little bit. She could have made the decision of, like, she could have fended for herself. Like, she could have gone off, and so I think you like her more because she puts herself in danger by going back in. And again, I mean, one thing which I think is a little bit of a is right near the end of the movie when the homeless guy is giving plot exposition, basically, like he's explaining the history of the whole thing.
Even though we've already seen it, we've kind of got it. You know?
Yeah, like he's summing it up a little bit because he has the line about, well, she's a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah.
We're kind of okay, but that did feel a bit of a speech. So that I think that's one of the weaker moments in the movie, and there's definitely some on the nose type dialogue, because I think earlier in the movie, the line where Keith, sorry, I said Bill because it's Bill Skarsgård, but the line where I say, do you think I'm a monster, Ray? Do you really think I'm a monster? And you shout yes. I shouted yes because it's Pennywise, even though I sort of remembered that he turned out not to be the villain. But
right, yeah,
like,
I am.
That line was a bit on the nose, and a little
say it. I can't remember when he says it.
At this point, she is starting to warm to him.
So it's after the job interview, sort of.
I can't remember.
She has that first night with him, doesn't she? We're not with him, but you know what I mean. She has the first night in the house with.
I think it must be during that first night, because obviously after the job interview is pretty much where things start to go. You know, we get into the horror stuff because she goes back to the house and things start to happen, and it's not long after that where he gets killed off. And I think it must be the previous night. I just can't remember the order, well, because they're also talking casually about rape, about this idea of like, you know, do you think? Because she says something like, "Do you think I look like the sort of girl who would be raped?" sort of thing, and again, I think it's that sort of thing where, because at that point she's got her guard down a little bit more. Like at first she's on edge, and it's like, okay, this is weird. Who is this guy? He could be just spinning me a story, but then he does sort of charm her, like he sort of, and defenses go down a bit. So I think she's almost making that gag about, okay, because I don't think he's a creep who might rape me. It's almost that idea of it's all right to make this little gag about it. Eventually, it's possible they might have cast him because this isn't long after he played Pennywise, and just playing with that a little bit. So there's definitely lines like that are too on the nose. And as I said, it did feel the end of the movie with the homeless guy, that felt like a bit of an exposition dump and was a little bit of a preachy sort of speech.
I mean, you know, in some ways, you know, that show don't tell thing. You know, we had that flashback. We probably could have.
Yeah, just read in between the lines.
That this was, you know, that he was having. I suppose you've got the idea that not only is he raping these women, he's taking them down to his cellar, raping them and killing them, but then, or not killing them, they're having children, and then he's raping the children, and then they're having his children again. And
yeah, and again, that's.
I mean, you know, you kind of. I mean, that's what the Tramp tells the Royals. They don't, you know, they're doing that sort of thing all the time, and they don't.
Okay, I've got to be honest.
You know,
I never expected them to get mentioned during a Barbarian.
Well, no, you know what I mean. No, it's like this will be about 400 generations of having raping great grandchildren. I mean, you know, it's like he's only been doing it for like 30, 40 years. It's, you know what I mean? It's
well, yeah, but again, that's just the horror of the premise, and it's just like the metaphor.
Yeah, no, and I think if it was a good film, you know, or if it was playing with the camp, if it was going into the kind of camp, you know, like I remember there's that bit in one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets where, and I think it was the third one for some reason. I seem to remember going to see it in the cinema, and there's a bit where Nun sort of says, you know, that she was working in a lunatic asylum, and the lunatics all go out and rape the nun, and she said Freddy Krueger was the bastard son of 1,000 maniacs or something, and it got a big laugh. but it's fine, you know.
Yeah,
It's a silly
it's
line
just an add-on to
in a silly kind of movie, you know. But this didn't have that kind of element of silliness about it. It was to me, it seemed to be taking itself very, very seriously. It really, you know.
yeah.
But maybe I'm wrong. It seemed like it was taking itself somewhat seriously, quite seriously.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with
just
that. Like, there's definitely moments where I laughed, but I agree on the whole. It's playing it a bit more straightforward, and it's trying to be a more modern sort of horror.
I think that's the thing. If you play it straight, then you've got to kind of if you want people to buy into the kind of the premise, then the premise actually has to make sense, and it just didn't. I mean, you know. And that's, you know, like
I don't care about that. That's what genre is. Like, I think this is something you maybe don't grasp, which is why people levitate to sci-fi or horror movies. It is because they're putting them in a more, like, obviously escapist sort of, you know, less realistic context or world, you know, the fantastical world, but they're using that to talk about things in the real world and kind of, you know, play with like metaphors, and I think that's a good thing about it. Like, it's sort of you can get into it as quite a fun, which obviously admittedly this isn't much fun because of the subject matter, because when you think about it, it's quite dark, and also because, like you said, probably it is taking itself a little too seriously. But, you know, I mean, as a horror fan, I think you can have both. Like, you can.
This is an interesting thing, because you're a horror fan, and I'm you know,
yes,
I like Nosferatu, and The Shining, and we talked about, you know, The Exorcist, blah, blah, blah. Like all them, and I really enjoyed Evil Dead. You know, it was because it was silly and funny and fun. And I can enjoy things like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and, you know, and Night of the Living Dead, and I can enjoy these kind of films. And I can enjoy.
Well, is that?
I mean, I think if I had just turned this on, and I would have watched it to the end, I would have made it to the end. But I don't think my opinion about it would have been any higher.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, you know, I mean, and I think that's the thing. I mean, you know, I don't know how many times I say this. I just really feel like if I had just randomly selected a generic horror movie, any bog standard second-rate generic horror movie, this would be one.
Yeah, well, clearly I don't feel that strongly. I mean, I think there's faults with the movie. I think this time around I didn't love it as much because of some of the things we've been talking about, and I just think it's a little harsh to call it bog standard and generic, because I think there is like a competency to like how it's directed. You know, the characters are engaging enough. I do think, as I said, a couple of good jump scares. I like the look of the house and the space of the house and the way it plays with like the different locations, the different rooms and the spaces. You know, there's some quite nice aerial shots at some point, which
I don't remember them.
And
I mean, you know, I quite like. I mean, you know, it's like it was whoever lit it, fine, and in fact did a good job. You know, because I think it was moodily lit. It was the lighting and the makeup design, and like I say, you put somebody in a dimly lit little cavern like that, and then introduce a mad woman who looks like a zombie. It's inherently a little bit scary, but it doesn't involve much effort. You know, that I think is the thing. It just feels like kind of
you know, and I mean,
a monkey with a typewriter could have written it, and the director. I mean, he could have been down the pub with his mates while the camera person and the makeup artist, and the production designer made the film.
I think,
you know, that's what it felt like to me.
I do think you're being a bit, I think.
Well, maybe I am. I mean, you know, maybe a little bit. Obviously, I do believe that all films need a director, but you know, do you know what I mean? It's like I don't know that he was doing a great deal, and I would be interested to see Weapons. Is it called Weapons?
Yeah,
I'd be interested to see it. So if that's it, I'm not going to pay, but if it's ever on Netflix or something, I'll go. I'll watch it.
You don't have to go. Weapons has been very popular and very well received, and And I mean, this was at the time as well, but this was his first feature, and this was a little bit more okay. Horror fans seem to like it, but it doesn't seem to be a breakout hit in the same way Weapons was. You know,
No, I don't remember it coming out.
No, and I think also sometimes it's what you bring to it, because like I was lucky enough to see this when it came out, literally into cinemas. So I saw it opening weekend. Well, pretty much. It might have been a week later, but it was quite close to when it came out. So I was able to shut the hype out, really, because in a way the hype hadn't started. Whereas I've talked to other people.
I mean, there's an actual hype for this
in the horror community. I think that's the thing you have to remember, because horror fandom and movies can be quite niche still. Unless
this may be an interesting diversion. I mean, right, and I'm trying to say this respectfully. I promise you. Do you like generic jumps and scares and atmosphere? You know, do you just enjoy that? Or do you not think
well, I think it's case by case. Like, I can't necessarily say as a flat rule. I mean, what I would say is, like, I'm always looking for original and fun horror movies. And I think there is a balance. I think horror movies, part of the beauty of them is that it's a tried and tested formula which never really goes out of fashion. And it's a bit like how with a slasher movie is so basic and everything. Like, you can add little modern twists to it because it makes sense. People want to feel like they're watching something which is set now. But what a slasher movie is hasn't really changed over the years, and it doesn't need to change. No, it holds up because it's so basic.
It's fun, I think, because it's a slightly warped fun, but it is. I mean, part of the fun of a slasher movie is how inventive can they get? When they're, when you tie somebody to an ice rink and skate over and slice them in half or something. I don't know if that's ever happened in a movie, but you know what I mean. It's like, how inventive can you get in how you murder someone, and it's not really scary. It's more kind of camp and silly and funny.
Normally, there's obviously.
And I'm sure there's good slasher movies and bad slasher movies, and you're probably a lot more familiar with them than I am. A way that's not been done a million times before. Yeah. And that's why I kind of keep harping back to things like The Shining, which I know had a huge budget and endless. He had unbelievable amounts of resources and stuff, which I'm sure this guy didn't have.
Yeah. This is more basic.
But then, again, I'll go back to something like Carnival of Souls, which had no budget whatsoever, and Evil Dead, and Night of the Living Dead, and all those kind of films. I think you're going to get more originality, even by today's standards, in a lot of those films than you got in this.
Yeah, but isn't that just? And this is something I say a lot.
That's why they've lasted as well. That's the other reason. That's why those films are still talked about. Whereas I think, well, it's from the 60s, right? I mean, 60 years from now, nobody is going to be referencing Barbarian. I can pretty much guarantee you that.
But it's not. That's not always a measure of quality, and that's not always.
Well, it is a measure.
No, it's not a definitive.
It may not be the definitive measure of quality, but it is a measure of quality. I'd say it's always a measure.
It's a measure of quality. I mean, I think it's debatable anyway, because his latest film, Weapons, has gone down very well. And so with most people, I'm a bit of an outlier. But so because this is his first film before that, I think it's possible this might get reevaluated at some point, be more on the critical side of it being like repetitive and not really doing anything new. You've got, again, the whole incest thing is a very old trope by now, because actually there's a very famous.
That's The Hills Have Eyes, isn't it? Isn't that what The Hills Have Eyes is all about?
Yeah, and there's obviously some of that going on in Texas Chainsaw.
Is there?
but there's a very
and Deliverance. I mean, you know, it's alluded to, isn't it? I mean,
there's a very famous episode of the X-Files, which at the time
I've seen it. It's one of the few episodes I've seen.
Oh, it's so scary. It's
where the mother is being tied up by the kids, and then she protects the kids. I remember that one. I've only seen about 4 episodes of the X-Files, but I've seen.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's called Home. It's a brilliant episode. But they actually, when it first aired, like it aired on that night, and then they pulled it for quite a while.
Oh, really?
Before, just because this was back in like 2000, and it's network TV, and they just considered the themes and what it did as too much for like mainstream network TV, so it was pulled for a little while, and then later on it was put back on syndication and all that. So that was amazing. But yeah, I was getting vibes of that with the female character in this, you know, very sort of similar.
Oh, okay. But I remember, I mean, but even Psycho, I mean, it's not stated outright, but it's implied.
Yeah, you've got that stuff.
You know, you've got a kind of incestuous thing going on, haven't you? And things like, I don't know, Good Boy Bobby, like, you know, the non-horror fans.
Yeah.
The horror fans, do they all agree with you, you know, or what? You know, so you definitely got to comment.
It did make it a more interesting chat because you came at it.
Yeah, no, I was kind of hoping that you would like it, because when we talked about Evil Dead, we were both kind of going, that was great, wasn't it? That was good. Yeah, I really like that about it. And I was thinking, oh God, it'd be good if you like this film and I dislike it, because then at least
it's always a more interesting conversation, I find, and quite meaty. And that's fair enough. So I think
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, I think some of what you're saying is down to a taste thing, and some of it is down to me being a horror fan thing. And you know, I just enjoyed the payoff where Justin Long, AJ finally got his. You know, it was quite a visual sort of moment. It was quite satisfying, and he kind of got the death he deserved. So, you know,
I can't remember how he died. How did he die?
Well, she gouges his eyes out.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Rips into the head, and
I do remember that was a bit disgusting.
It was quite well done. Yeah,
it was. I mean, this felt like quite a big budget. I mean, not big, but
yeah, maybe.
Whereas Evil Dead, you felt they were kind of going, "This is what we want to do.
Yeah,
we haven't got the money. Like, how do we do it?" This one, this is what we want to do. We need this much money, and something like, there you go.
The opposite of what you're saying with this in Weapons. Even though there's bits I like in Weapons, you know, like I'm not going to say it's like a flat out bad movie. It was just a disappointing movie.
I'll have to hunt it.
Yeah. So then you can give me your opinion, but like, yeah, it was just this thing.
I'll probably love it. I'll be like,
yeah, exactly. Whereas I was having the reaction you're having to this, where I just thought it was a bit up its own arse, and you know, like it just trying a bit too hard and making things a bit too, fancy or convoluted or whatever. But it's just funny how you have these different reactions, and that's. But you've definitely made me think about things, and like I can see where you're coming from. I can see that, okay, this different point of view, that these things are probably wrong with it, and maybe I just drive with it and went with it because I mean,
obviously it's not a right or wrong, but you know,
as a straightforward horror movie that leads somewhere. And as I said, I did like the final girl, whereas you didn't think that much about her. Which
I was a bit didn't care one way or the other.
I just like how she was proactive, and I like little touches like her looking him up on the internet, like his history and stuff. And you know, I did feel like you said the setup was quite well done, and then the payoff was quite well done. And maybe where we agree, and I think this is where a lot of people say this about the movie, then it has a very strong start, and then it's the second half which isn't quite as good. And I would say the AJ stuff is the weakest stuff, and then it's almost like, to me, it has a good start and it has a good finish, apart from the preachy sort of homeless guy.
Yeah, well,
but then it's the middle where it slogs a little bit, and you know, his character is very hard to take, and
I mean, it just seemed that to me, once you saw the woman
yeah,
who was murdering it just ceased to be in any way scary. I mean, it ceased to even be atmospheric after that point, because even though you knew she was a murderer, you sort of assumed she's killed Tess. He's going down there, and at this point, you kind of go, well, I know what he's going to meet. And then I felt cheated by the homeless guy saying, and she's not the worst thing down there.
And she does go back in, and she's quite proactive. I always like that in A Final Girl. So that was... So yeah,
I mean you're probably much more familiar with that as a trope, really, than I am.
Yeah.
I suppose we have it with Ripley going back in Aliens.
Yeah, and she was one of the very early Final Girls, yeah.
I mean, because I've not seen films like Friday the 13th, and I have seen Nightmare on Elm Street, but I haven't seen Friday the 13th.
And obviously Halloween was...
I've seen Halloween, yeah.
And even Black Christmas, but, you know, there's sort of a final girl in that.
Is there a final girl in that?
There is, like, it's not... They don't make it as big a deal as, like, Laurie in Halloween, where you, like, really invest in her character and things like that. But, yeah, there is a final girl. Ratings for Barbarian, so your rating will be very interesting. So you can do it out of 10, or you can do it the star system, however you want to do it.
Well, out of 10, I'd probably give it about 3.5.
Okay, yeah.
So I should do it out of 20 and give it 4.
Yeah.
It's.
I sensed you were going to go low.
You thought I was going to go lower than that?
No, not lower, but just based on what you've been saying. Like, I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, on the sort of sense that. So let's think. What would be a 5, which would be a sort of an average, and that would be Nightmare on Elm Street. Maybe?
No, Nightmare on Elm Street is a great film. Like, I'm not.
Well, I'd probably give that about a 6. I think.
No, okay, I would go higher, but again, maybe that's not. Again, maybe that's just because you're not a massive horror fan, and
yeah. But this I thought was so. I suppose in a way, you know, if you take 5, well, it depends. It depends. If you take 5 to be a kind of...
So 5 is very average. It's very middle of the road.
Okay, well, maybe I need to give this a
quite
4.5.
Quite boring, you know. Like,
maybe I need to give this a 4.5, because if you think 5 is what you get if you just watch average whatever, then this would be about that. This is 4.5. It's there. It's kind of generic, ordinary, uninspired.
So
if you just want to watch a horror movie, it's as good as anything else.
Okay.
Well, it's not. But it's not as good as The Exorcist or something. It's you know, it's
definitely not.
It's as good as almost anything else that you just stumble across.
I'll go 7. You know, because
7.
Yeah,
this is 7 out of 10.
Yeah, because I do like it. Like for the most part, I like it.
What?
I don't know why you're surprised. Equally, me not being, I wasn't surprised you went as low as you did based on your feelings. Based on my feelings, I don't know why you're surprised. Then I give it a 7.
Because you. So well,
I mean, I could have gone a little bit higher. I think you've talked me down a bit just because of... No, that's fine. That's the point of a conversation. I think I've taken on board what you've been saying.
Well, you took me up because I said 3.5.
Yeah.
I went to 4.
Well, only because I put in context maybe the scores. But it's up to you. I mean, you know, there's lots of movies that people perceive to be great, which I would just kind of... It doesn't interest me, so I would give it quite a low score. But it's all subjective.
What would you give?
To answer your question, I would give The Exorcist a 10.
An absolute 10. It cannot be bettered.
Yeah, because it's my favourite horror movie of all time. Seven's good, but it still has faults. Like, I think it's not until you get to an 8 where you're saying, okay, this is like a really good film. And then obviously 9 and 10, you're saying it's exceptional. That's Barbarian, everyone. Like, yeah, so Ray thinks Craigers is a hack. No talent at all. So we can put that on the poster.
Based on this one film. Based
on this one film, yeah. So you'll have to let me know what you think about Weapons. But
I would be interested. Well, I'd be interested to see what your viewers think of this film.
Thanks everyone for watching. Let us know what horror movies you've been watching this month. We hope you have a great spooky season. As always, you can support me, patreon.com/boardnow. You can become a channel member, just hit the join button. And don't forget to hype up the video, because that's a new thing YouTube recently added. Or you can make a one-off donation on the channel.
I definitely need the hype.
Super chat and all the other. Say that again?
I said I definitely need the hype.
Okay, we need the hype. Hype is around.
I need
Do the thing. Yeah, you do need your own platform. Right? Great October. Let us know what you think about the movies. And yeah, let's settle the debate. Which one of us is right? Is it a good movie, or is it a piece of trash like Ray says it is? So,
the beauty of it is that neither of us are right.
There's no right and wrong. Okay, yeah.
So,
yeah.
No, there is no right or wrong. It just is a matter of opinion. But yeah, it would be interesting to know what the majority of especially your viewers, because they're horror fans. But anyway, happy Halloween.
Have a great month, everyone. We'll see you again soon. I have no witty outro because I lost the will to live a long time ago. That's just a joke. We've actually gone longer than the Evil Dead review, which is surprising.
That's because we disagreed.
Yeah, well, that's true. There's more of a back and forth. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, we're definitely leaving. I'll have Ray on the channel again in the future. See you soon. Love you all. Bye. See you later.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
This is 476 Barbarian, right?
Yeah, I'm renting this place.
No, I booked it a month ago.
Are you sure you have the right place?
Yeah. What am I supposed to do?
Why don't you come inside and we'll call these idiots. Why don't you just crash here?
Oh, no.
I don't know if you got a great look at this neighborhood, but I don't think you should be out there by yourself. It's dry and there's a lock on the door. By the way, I'm Keith.
Tess.
You take the bedroom and I'll sleep out here on the couch.
God. Keith?
This process might seem overwhelming, but with a little practice, it can soon become a pleasurable experience. This is perfectly natural.